Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to a very special video because today I am going to answer, my beer is just like right there in the frame. I am going to answer your questions. So some of you may have seen that I posted something on my YouTube channel and everywhere else on social media, basically telling everyone, look, I'm going to answer whatever questions you have, ask me anything, and a lot of you did. I left everything up there for 24 hours, so if you didn't get a question in, better luck next time. Also, just post some questions down below. Maybe I'll do this again. But anyway, today, Old Head answers your questions. Let's get ready. Okay, so now I know that normally with like an AMA type thing, you're live and you're answering questions on the fly. And I couldn't do that, so I did the next best thing. I kept the window for questions short, 24 hours, and as soon as it was done, I just quickly wrote all the questions down and I just walked away from them. So I haven't looked at the questions since. Sure, I thought about one or two of them, but let's just dig in and answer some questions. First up, let's hit YouTube. First question is from Ritual301, and they ask, 80s, 90s, aughts, or tens music, you have a favorite era? Probably the 80s. Because I think there's more, if I'm going to have to pick an entire decade, because late 90s wasn't that great. I like early 90s, but 80s, you start off strong with like Iron Maiden and you build into like Metallica and thrash metal, and there's even the beginnings of death metal by the late 80s, and I even like a lot of that 80s hair band shit. It was just fun and vibrant time for music, so I'd have to say that the 80s is my favorite era. Second question is from General Hargreaves, and they ask, is there a subgenre you tend to lean towards more than the others? If so, which one? For those of you that have been watching for a while, say it with me, thrash metal. I mean, I'm more obsessed with thrash metal than any other genre in collecting and listening. That's just my thing. Next up is from Martin Gassa, and he asks, do you have any particular favorite South American metal band apart from Sepultura? The only one I can really think of right offhand is Nervosa. I really like Nervosa. They're very cool. I don't know a whole lot of South American metal bands. I hear them, here and there. Is Crisian, or they're South American? Is that how you say it? Crisian? I don't know. Maybe they're not. Either way, Nervosa. Let's go with Nervosa. They're a fucking great band. Now, Martin asked two questions. And normally I'd be like, nah, dude. But his second one was really good. So I'm going to read that one too. His second question was, do you think that nowadays a band really is original and creative, or everything in music was invented? I think the really short answer is yes, I think new things can happen in music. The long answer is nothing new can really happen in music because it's all based around the same number of notes, and especially when you're talking about rock and metal. Like, how much further can you go with guitars, bass, drums? Sure, you can add electronic elements, but that's, I don't know, there gets to a point where you have to go back to melody if you're making a song. And so I think that it's really hard to be like totally original. Although, like, there is some shit that I hear and I go, oh man, I don't know if I've heard anything like this before. But you could probably also always trace back something. Like, oh, this is connected to the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or fucking Howlin' Wolf, however far back you want to go. I'm pretty sure that you could probably take anything that's quote unquote original and trace it back somewhere. But does that mean it's shitty music? Fuck no. I mean, there's some great shit that sounds very derivative of older things. It's a very long answer. So I guess my answer is yes and no. Okay. Liam asks, who's your personal big four of thrash metal? That's tough. Obviously, Metallica and Anthrax are staying right there because they're two of my favorite bands of all time. I'll take out Megadeth and Slayer just to be controversial. I like both of those bands a lot, but I'm making my own big four. So say what you will. Probably, if we're sticking to American metal bands, I'll probably throw in Sacred Reich, because I love pretty much everything they've done. Oh fuck, who would the fourth be? Fuck, I have no idea. I'm just gonna put Megadeth back in there. That's really tough. Or should I put Slayer back in there? You vote down below. Who goes back in, Megadeth or Slayer? This is really tough. Can I just add in Acid Rain from the UK? Let's just make this a worldwide thrash thing. And I'm just gonna put Acid Rain as my number 4 because I fucking love that band. If you don't know Acid Rain, just go listen to all their shit because they're fucking great. Anyway, let's move on. Next question is from Putrid Abomination. That's a pretty good name. What's your favorite prog rock band? Rush. It doesn't get any fucking better than Rush. In my opinion, any newer prog rock bands, they all owe a whole bunch of shit to Rush. Newer proggy stuff, I like what Mastodon's doing with prog, how they're taking metal and making it proggy. I like that. But once again, I hear a little shit and I go, that fucking just sounds like Rush. I love Rush, one of my favorite bands, so they are clearly my favorite prog rock band. Feel free to argue with that below in the comments. Okay, let's move over to Instagram. Iron.Lancer asks, do you like any music besides rock and metal? Yes. Probably the number one thing I like besides rock and metal is hip hop. I grew up on hip hop. In fact, around the time I was getting into rock music, I was also into hip hop. So while I was listening to, your Def Leppards and your Guns N' Roses, I was also listening to Run DMC and LL Cool J and the Beastie Boys and stuff like that. But my hip hop love kind of ends somewhere in the 90s. I do like things that would be considered newer. Like Outkast was in this millennium, and I like, Run the Jewels and things like that. Kendrick Lamar's pretty great, but most of the shit that I listen to when it comes to hip hop, I guess it's also the same way with metal. A lot of it is old school shit. Next question is from R. Stooge. I guess that's how you say it. You mentioned skate punk filling a metal void in the 90s. How deep is your punk rock interest? Not really that deep. If you try to dig further than the 90s, Fat Records and that era of punk, I enjoy, Green Day and stuff like that, but if you go further back, I like the Sex Pistols, I like the Ramones, the basic shit. I like Black Flag, but Black Flag, the shit that I love from Black Flag, you could barely call that punk. Damaged is a punk album, but it's hardcore. Other than that, all that shit that you throw out there, your Dead Kennedys and all those things, I like songs from those bands. One of the first albums I ever got when I was a kid was by The Exploited, a UK punk band. I really liked that album, but I'm not really into that band. So you could say that my punk love doesn't really go that much deeper than the Fat Records kind of stuff. All right. Metal Hipster 80 asks, 3 albums that you were highly anticipating and when released, they were hugely disappointing. The first one that comes to mind is Load by Metallica back in 1996. I think that's when that came out. I was a giant Metallica fan, and while I do love that album now, at the time, I was very I don't really understand what they're doing. I don't know if I really like this. It took a long time for me to get into that album. Other ones that have been disappointing, I don't know why it's not easy to think of albums that have been hugely disappointing because there clearly have been albums. I used to be a really big Radiohead fan, and I don't really think the last few things they put out have been very good at all. There are bands that have consistently let me down that I used to love, Clutch being one of those bands. I love the first 2 albums that Clutch put out, and then after that I'm just okay, what the fuck is this? Baroness is another band that first album, the Red album, I don't know if that's their first one, but such a fucking amazing album, and every album since then has just gotten more boring and disconnected with me totally. So it's not necessarily one album, but I am very disappointed that these bands that I loved didn't continue to put out shit that really interested me. But you know what? Both of those bands still experiencing a lot of success on radio as well. So, more power to them. Okay. Bass player underscore 27 asks, if there were a new big four of thrash, who would be in it? Okay, I've thought of this before. I would have, even though I'm not a huge fan, I have to put in Municipal Waste because I feel like they're very important to newer thrash metal coming up in America. I'm going to throw Power Trip in there because they, in my opinion, are the best thrash metal band of modern times from my home state. So they're my boys. On top of that, I guess newer thrash, Havoc. Havoc's great, but what the jury's still in on that new album. When it comes out, I'm going to do a review and let you know if I'm still really into Havoc. This is another hard one. I don't know who to put in for the fourth. Please help me out down below. Who should the fourth band be? My brain goes to Warbringer just because I've heard some of their newer shit they've just been putting out, and they're pretty good. Not amazing, but yeah, so they wouldn't go in there. I don't know. Help me out. Who's the fourth? I mean, utilize those comments, folks. Okay. This name doesn't matter to you asks, what's your top 5 albums to come out of the 90s Seattle grunge movement? Okay. I'm not going to be the cool dude here because some other person who's doing a music thing would probably pull out some obscure, unheard of, Sub Pop or other indie label shit from the 80s. But no, my favorite albums to come out of the Seattle grunge movement are In Utero by Nirvana. Am I doing 5? I'm going to go and throw in Nevermind by Nirvana. Nirvana's just an amazing band. Dirt from Alice in Chains. That's 3. Bad Motorfinger. Soundgarden. I need a 5th. Who did I leave out? You got to throw in Pearl Jam 10. I mean, that album, I did a podcast all about grunge, and I talk about how important Nevermind and Pearl Jam 10 coming out at the same time, how important that was to grunge growing and reaching this huge, broad audience. So that would be my 5. I know, I'm not very cool, but I'm being honest. Those are the ones that I think are the most important and probably the ones that I enjoy the most. All right, MCRC Review asks, what was the first band you really got into? Probably Guns N' Roses. The first band that I was like super fanatical about would have been Metallica, and that's kind of never ended. But I think Guns N' Roses was the first band where I wanted to know about them, and I wanted to buy whatever it is I could find that they put out. So yeah, probably Guns N' Roses. All right, next question is from Jay Spenlove. You've mentioned being a guitarist. Who were some of the people that made you want to start playing? All right. This is an interesting question because when I started to play guitar, it wasn't necessarily a thing that I sought out to do. Like, I didn't want to be a guitar player. I just wanted to be in a band. And guitar just seemed like the coolest thing. And the thing that really made me decide to start playing guitar was the fact that I met people my age who were in bands when I was like a freshman in high school. And so once I saw they could do it, I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna do it too. Kurt Cobain is really big. It's a big deal seeing somebody that isn't a larger than life guitar virtuoso playing some killer music. And so he's a big influence on me, but probably the very first guitar player that I ever saw when I was young and thought that's pretty fucking great had to have been Jimi Hendrix. Watching the Monterey Pop Festival performance and things like that. Because I've always liked guitar players that did odd shit, that were really talented, but they weren't traditional. And I think that Hendrix was that. And so that probably is kind of what's led me to be the kind of guitar player I am, because I've never been a person that's really wanted to get really good at soloing. I've always been about rhythm and kind of odd sounds on the guitar, and so you could probably go ahead and draw a line directly back to Mr. Hendrix. So there you go. All right, Jay Liley Jonah SX asks, are you as bored as the rest of us? Probably. I don't know. How bored are you guys? Next question is from Wherever I May Roam, and they ask, in your opinion, which is the best metal album of all time? I'm going to have to go with Ride the Lightning by Metallica because it's my favorite album of all time and my favorite metal album. You could probably argue with me that there are more important metal albums, and I would not say you were wrong. So if you're talking about the best metal album of all time, you want to say Number of the Beast, you want to say Paranoid, whatever, I'd probably agree. But if I'm picking one, it's Ride the Lightning every time. All right. So we've got the last few questions here. We're moving over to Twitter, where I only got 2 questions. So here we go. First question is from Arcevedo. Hey, Ralph, over on Twitter. And he asks, job on real life? I'm assuming you meant in. You got things going on. You got a family. These are one of those things where I put in the thing that I would answer almost any question. So I'm going to be a little vague on this one. Let's just say that I work for a very prominent technology company that everybody knows and most people use and some people don't like. And I work on the music side of things. Other than that, that's as far as I'm going to go with that. You could do your digging if you want to. Second question from Twitter is from Alien Drummer X. And they ask, what do you think about female drummers in metal? They're great. I'm all about female everything in metal. Like I said, when asked about the South American bands, Nervosa, all-girl metal band, and they're fucking great. I do really think, I don't mean to be controversial, I do think that when a woman is attractive, the bar is set a little bit lower, so they may not be as good, but they're given a whole lot of credit, and I don't think that's right. I think everyone should be equal. So when I see some really fucking amazing female musicians and they're not really given the credit they deserve, I'm like, well, why? I don't fucking get it. So it's all about skill. I don't give a shit about your gender. And so if you're an amazing female drummer or guitar player or bass player or whatever you are, I'm like, fucking great. If you put out good music, I'm going to fucking listen to you. All right. Last but not least, moving over to Facebook, where I got a whopping 1 question. There's like 3,000 people following me on there, but I got 1 question. Thanks, Facebook algorithm. Anyway, this is from Fran Barcia, and they ask, do you know any Spanish bands? Would you accept any recommendations? I don't know if I know any Spanish bands. I'm assuming you mean from Spain. I don't think I know any. So do I accept recommendations? Absolutely. From you or anyone out there listening. To be fair, recommend away in the comments every time I post a video. Sure, I may not end up liking 80% of the shit that people suggest that I listen to, but every once in a while there's that one thing that I'm like, how the fuck did I not know about this? So yeah, if you know any Spanish bands that you think I should check out, put that down in the comments below. All right, so kind of a long video, but I answered all your questions. So I think probably what I'll do this time is see how far this video reaches. If you did not ask me a question or you thought of another one, post it in the comments below. And maybe when I get to a point where I've got another group of questions together to do another video, I'll do another one. But I'm really happy that those of you who participated did. It's so great that you guys are out there watching my shit and you're interacting with me, because that's why I fucking do this. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you all again very, very soon.